For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jared, the Director of Attorney Strategy here at Lawlytics. And today we're going to be talking about a really cool feature of Lawlytics that works behind the scenes to help your web presence. And specifically, we're going to be talking about semantic markup, what it is, what it does, and why it's important. And so this webinar is going to be a little bit shorter than usual because the subject matter is a bit dry, but it's important that you know a bit about the subject. And I commend you all for being here. This is a pretty technical subject. So I'm sure by now that many of you have seen a number of Lawlytics sites, whether by looking through our customer gallery on lawlytics.com or in the wild, so to speak, when you're searching for attorneys or competitors. And we all know that Lawlytics websites are pretty easy on the eyes, but today I'm going to show you that Lawlytics sites are more than just a pretty face. They've also got impressive brains. So behind every Lawlytics site, there's a lot of nifty features that are really exciting for nerds and technology enthusiasts, but to be frank, they're not that exciting to our clients. But today we're going to delve into one of those features. It's not quite sexy enough to make the brochure, but it's extremely important to your website nonetheless. And that's something that we're going to be talking about today is semantic markup. So before we get into the finer points of semantic markup, we're just going to start with some simple dictionary definitions. And these are going to help us conceptualize what exactly semantic markup is and what it does. So our first definition, semantic, is relating to meaning in language or logic. And markup, when used in the context of computing, is a set of tags assigned to elements of a text to indicate their relation to the rest of the text or to indicate how they should be displayed. And just by way of example, so the main markup language you've probably heard of is HTML, and that stands for hypertext markup language. And so HTML tags allow us to dictate how words on a page should appear in relation to one another. So for instance, if you wrote a sentence and surrounded it in heading tags, that sentence is going to be it's going to be bold, it's going to be larger, and it's going to be prominent. It'll be displayed as a heading. So when we combine these two concepts, semantic markup is a set of tags that allow us to assign elements of our web page with meaning. So semantic markup improves the visibility and reach of your website in a variety of ways. But despite this importance, it's still really poorly understood by many. And so as we discussed briefly, HTML tags generally dictate how information should appear on your page. What HTML tags do not do is provide any information about what the content on your page actually means. And so this can make it difficult for search engines to intelligently display relevant results for any given search. And so let me explain. Let's take this page that I created for a fake law firm as an example. And so let's say the title of our page is simply The Firm. Now, to a human reader, this clearly refers to this particular law firm. But to search engines, the page looks like this. So when a search engine sees that you've got a heading called The Firm, it might think the firm refers to some as seen on TV aerobics video, a 1980s hair metal band with the guy from Led Zeppelin, the Tom Cruise movie based on a John Grisham novel, etc. There's a lot of options that the firm could refer to. And so never underestimate the power of the human brain. Things we take for granted as rote functions, like ascribing meaning to words based upon their context, are actually hugely complex processes. And they're incredibly difficult for computer programs to emulate. So, for instance, as humans, we're able to instantly derive meaning from symbols using context and reasoning. So when we look at this page, it's that same example page, we instantly identify that this is the contact page for a law firm. And we instantly recognize that 6801 Camino Principal is an address. and that numbers arranged with dashes separating each group is a phone number. So we can tell that this is an attorney profile. And then we can tell that if we fill out this form and hit submit, this will put us in contact with the firm, etc. There's lots of context clues for, that this is a law firm's contact page. But this process of deriving meaning requires very little work on our part. But for a search engine to replicate this process, it's a huge undertaking. And sometimes search engines are going to need a little bit of help. And so semantic markup helps us bridge this gap by providing us with a way to communicate the meaning of words to search engines. So now that we've got the concept of semantic markup down, let's dive into the details a bit. And so in order to accurately describe the meaning of words to search engines and other programs, we first need a common uniform language with which to convey meaning. And thus, schema.org was born. And schema.org is a joint initiative between the major search engines, Google, Bing, Yandex, Yahoo, in an effort to create and support a common set of schemas for structured data markup on web pages. That's their definition. So to translate their definition into English, schema.org gives us a collection of shared vocabularies that webmasters can use to mark up their pages in ways that can be understood by all the major search engines. And so let's take a look at some of the specific language that schema.org created. So this page comes directly from schema.org's attorney-specific markup page. And so as you can see here, we have the ability to assign properties to different words on our websites. For instance, we can indicate that a string of numbers and text is an address. We can identify the geo-coordinates of a law office. We can specify that we've displayed the firm's hours of operation. We can specify our telephone number, etc. We can specify reviews. There's lots of items on a web page that we can assign meaning to using this semantic markup. And so to give you an example of how it looks kind of in the wild and in action, we'll take this Lawlytics sample site again. And this is just a fake contact page that I whipped up, but it'll show you how Lawlytics automatically adds attorney-specific semantic markup. You don't even have to do anything but write the content. Lawlytics is going to add it for you. So here you can see that we're using schema.org's attorney-specific semantic markup. And so you can see we've got our address defined, we've got our phone number defined, the geo-coordinates, the hours of operation, the employees. There's a lot that we've defined for the search engine. So they're not going to have to guess as to the meaning of the content on our page. So if your law firm has a Lawlytics website, search engines are really going to get a sense of the content on every page, and they're going to be able to accurately classify it and quantify that information. So let's contrast the Lawlytics site, which we just looked at, which had the semantic markup automatically added, and let's contrast it with a regular old site. And so this is just an example we created using WordPress. And if you don't know what WordPress is, it's an open source content management system that a lot of attorney websites use. It's a pretty easy option for that. And so if you don't have Lawlytics, there's a pretty good chance that you're using WordPress. And so anyway, you can see here that unlike the Lawlytics site we looked at, there's no semantic markup indicating what the words on the page actually mean. So we've got information like office hours, office location, all the same information we had on the other page, but there's no markup here. All we've got are like paragraph tags, heading tags, and other just plain HTML tags that are only going to tell search engines how the information should look, but nothing about what that information actually means. So And the problem is WordPress is a content management system that's designed to work for anyone, stamp collectors, sheep herders, and attorneys. So it's not attorney specific. It's not going to add attorney specific semantic markup for you. And so why does that even matter? Semantic markup really helps us because it allows search engines to understand the exact meaning of the content on your website. This in turn allows them to classify your site correctly, which in turns allow them to display your site for relevant searches. It's also going to allow search engines to highlight information on your site to display on the results pages as rich snippets. So if you had, your reviews marked up with semantic markup, Google might display your reviews within the search results. It really, to sum it up, it's going to make your site more visible to search engines and in turn more visible to potential clients. So now you're probably wondering, what you should do if you don't have Lawlytics and you want to make sure that your site is utilizing attorney-specific semantic markup. So if you're using WordPress or another open source CMS like Joomla, Drupal, etc., you can try installing a structured data plugin. And we looked into this option the other day, and we could not find a plugin that did much more than basic authorship markup. And we definitely weren't able to find a plugin that used schema.org's attorney-specific markup. And it's not to say that such a plugin doesn't exist or might not exist in the future, but at present, there's not really a satisfactory option. And even if there are some drawbacks to running plugins. Depending on how the plugin was designed, it can make your site load more slowly. And even if it doesn't make your site load more slowly, if you have plugins, you need to make sure they're updated all the time, or else they can make your site vulnerable to attack. So there are some drawbacks to using plugins. So the other option would be to hire a webmaster to add the markup to your site ex post. This, however, is not an insignificant undertaking, and to many law firms, going this route is going to be cost prohibitive. So the best option for retrofitting your site with attorney-specific semantic markup is probably to import your old site to Lawlytics. It's going to be cheaper than hiring a webmaster to manually add the markup, and unlike using plugins, you're not going to run the risk of decreasing your site's performance or exposing your site to attack. So there is always that option. The content contained on your old page, when imported to Lawlytics, will automatically be marked up with all that attorney-specific markup that's going to give meaning to your site to search engines, which, as we discussed, improves your visibility. And so that's really all there is to say on semantic markup. We could go more in depth, but it's really dry and technical. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview, so you understand the concept and you'll understand what exactly we're talking about when we say semantic markup. And I commend you guys for actually attending this webinar. That shows a commitment to really learning about your website, because semantic markup, as you know, is not the most exciting topic. So I appreciate your guys' attendance. Our next webinar promises to be a bit more exciting as it's on videos. And so that's going to be hosted by Brian, our Director of Education. And so he'll be talking about everything your firm needs to know about YouTube videos, what to do, what not to do, to hopefully provide you with some guidance on using the powerful tool of video to promote your firm. And that webinar will be held next Thursday, October 31st, which happens to be Halloween. And that is, as always, at 10 a.m. Pacific time, if you would like to join us for that.